China invented this technique of making silk 7,000 years ago. That's 5,000 years before the beginning of the Silk Route, mind you. And it was all because an empress decided to have tea under a mulberry tree. Yes, a Chinese queen, Empress Xiling Shi, was sipping on her tea when suddenly a silkworm cocoon fell into her teacup, which had hot tea, right? And she was looking into the teacup at the cocoon. She noticed that a single strand was unraveling from that cocoon. And when she touched it, it felt such a fine and smooth thread. She immediately had her ministers look into this whole thing. And after a lot of trial and error, these guys figured out that raw silk can be extracted from the silkworm cocoons. This was then spun into a thread and then woven into silk cloth. The techniques used for raising these worms were also a closely guarded secret. Now, over in Rome, they used to think silk came from a tree leaf or a spider. No one had any idea that this huge trade depended on these small worms working away in their cocoons.
It takes 50,000 silkworm cocoons to produce just 1 kilogram of silk. And each cocoon produces a single thread of silk which can be as long as a kilometer.
And China was the only place in the entire world that possessed this exquisite piece of clothing and the techniques for making it, and everybody wanted it. The Chinese knew it, so they put in a lot of effort when it came to trading silk. Some people from China went to faraway lands on foot, horseback, and on camels, carrying silk with them for trade. To further stretch their arms into the West, the Chinese rulers sent gifts of silk to the rulers in Iran and West Asia. Silk was very, very expensive. And this was not because the Chinese were selfish or anything. These techniques, the long routes, the expense of transporting it, the taxes, and the availability of silk made it that expensive.